Hello and welcome to another video. And this one is about the benefits of working for somebody before doing your own thing. And I want to bring it back to Topshop and Urban Outfitters because it's when I think about the Athletesia journey now, there is so much that I benefited from for working from those two businesses and other retailers as well. And I've shared that at one point I would always think to myself, why do I keep on falling into fashion retail? And it was only one day where I was like, wow, I can now see how all the dots have connected to where I am now. And it is crazy to even think of it. But there is so much that I learned from a buying, merchandising, and sales perspective when it comes to working for those businesses. So, with Topshop, let me start there. When I think about learning, how to read sales reports, weeks cover, bestsellers, what was really working, what wasn't, and what happens in that case when it doesn't work, but also being able to go to head office and spend time with the buyers, have a look at what was coming next, and what were the trends, etc., and how were they being built out, but also having a say and a voice to say, right, I think this is going to be amazing in 214, which was the Oxford Street store. And so when I think about my business now, and when I'm thinking about the products that I'm going to be launching with and drops down the line, that really comes into play in terms of that experience and knowledge that I got from there, because I'm constantly thinking about number one, it's not about overbuying in any way, shape, or form, because if something doesn't work, it's going to need to drop out. Right? That's just the way how it is. But if something does work, it's then looking at why is it working so well and then being able to build on that versus looking at dropping in new things all the time that is like starting from scratch. And so those are some really key points that have really supported me now with my thinking. And it can be hard sometimes to be working for somebody else and thinking, oh my gosh, but I want to go off and do this thing. But really, it's about what can you gain from where you are working right now, and how can you intertwine and weave it into what you are creating and building. And it's not just about products, it's also about leadership and understanding how a business operates. So when I think about leadership and in the future, and even now when I'm working with freelancers and knowing who to hire and why to hire them, what I want them to do, and making sure that I'm actually leading in the right way and being super clear about what my expectations are and what I'm looking for, etc. And then also when I'm building a team in the future, these are things that I have under my hat to refer to, and also how not to do it as well, because there's knowing how to do it and also not how to do things that, comes from that experience. And then also, Urban Outfitters, it's similar things, but then also probably more so from a leadership side. Being able to get to grips with the financials is so, so key. And something that I am big on is knowing my numbers, is having my profit and loss and looking what I'm forecasting and being realistic about it, but also being ambitious and constantly going back to it and looking at where I might need to tweak it and where I might need to evolve it. And I loved Dragon's Den. During my recovery, I binged Dragon's Den. I feel like I had days where I would just watch Dragon's Den back to back. And there was so much that I learned from that as well and continue to learn from it, because you've got these, incredible dragons, people who get business. And so it's picking up on what they're saying and being able to learn from that. And so there are so many benefits that come from obviously going on the journey by yourself or whatever the case may be. But there's also so many benefits that you can gain from being in employment. And it's not discounting that, it's looking at what you can take away to support your growth and journey outside. And when it comes to, I'm just trying to think of, some other key areas is within Urban Outfitters. I remember we would have markdowns, well, you have markdowns in retail, and we would mark things down to like 1p sometimes, and you could just buy them and stuff like, yeah, you could obviously buy them. And then we would have things for staff. But then also, when it comes to stock take, and we done stock takes at Topshop too. But being across that, what does it mean? What does it look like? If the numbers don't match up, you've then got to look into that. And these are all things that come with running a product-based business, along with so many other different moving parts. And the law is constantly evolving, especially in Europe, when it comes to the responsibilities that brand owners have when it comes to what they're putting in the market and how they are managing their packaging, etc. And that is a massive massive piece of work. I'm telling you, it makes my head spin every single time, and I feel that I've got it and I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go again. And in 2028 there's going to be other moving parts on that front. So it's looking at how all of those different things come together. And I just want to, bullet point some things. So, number one, when it comes to products, I'm thinking about, okay, right, what have the women in the community said? What is it that they're looking for? What ultimately do I think is going to work? Because it is a bit of a guesstimate from a starting point at the beginning, but it's very much in keeping with the vision and the mission. And it's looking at it and saying, okay, right, if I get this product, if I get these four products, what am I looking at from a minimum order quantity with my manufacturers? What do I think makes sense from a sizing perspective as well? Because that's a, different beast within itself as well, in terms of being able to work that out. But it's being very smart about it and going in light to start, because one of the things that I don't want is all of this overstock and all of this product that I then can't shift. It doesn't make sense in any way, shape, or form. So that's why I spoke about building on what is working. And I remember when I met with my manufacturer, actually, it's a couple of guys, they came over from Turkey and they bought a couple of samples for me as well. And we were talking about the industry, and I was just like to one of the guys, look, what can I learn from you? Because you've been in this game, you've been in this space. What are some of the key takeaways? What is it that you're seeing? And that's one of the things that he spoke about is, you will have founders and they have something that's working, then all of a sudden, no, I don't want to do that, I want to go here. And it's like, but if that's what your customers are buying and if that's your best sellers, why are you now switching it? And of course, I get the whole viewpoint of wanting to do something new and fresh, but at the same time, it's building and building and building until I can get to a point where I can say, do you know what? Yes, I can shift direction, but it's taking the community on that journey as well, versus it, being completely driven by me. And one of the things that he said at the end is he said, you ask questions. So many people don't ask questions. And for me, if I've got these people in front of me who are experts within their field and what they do, I want to learn from them. Like, I'm going to ask an abundance of questions all of the time so it can make me better as a founder, because I want to understand all of the different areas of the business. I want to understand fabric. I want to know where it came from. I want to know what your practices are when it comes to your teams. Are you paying them, minimum wage and above? Like, what is the situation? How are they being treated, and so on? And when it comes to certificates, what certifications are there for the materials that we're using, etc.? Because I know that those are going to be questions that are going to come up at some point. And so this is like a little bit of a mix and blend of a video where it's working for somebody else and seeing what you can take away and what you can learn from that. But it's also thinking about, the business that's being built and the things that come with that in order to, make it successful, because that's the goal, right? I'm not creating something where I want it to fail. I'm creating something because I want it to be a huge success. And I believe that is the path that Athletesia is most definitely going to go on. And so, going back to, we've got product, then we've got that comes with that. It's the week's cover, it's the best sellers, and so on. I spoke about finances. There is someone that I'm working on for my finance stuff, and he looked at what I'd done, and he was like, did you do this by yourself? And I'm like, yeah, I did. But one of the things that he's going to be helping me with is like financial modeling. What are the different scenarios that I need to take into account if things, what's best case scenarios? What's worst case scenarios? When I'm thinking about, special offers at certain times during the years, what then is the impact of that? So when you buy a product, you are buying it, there's a unit cost that is attached to it. And there are other things that come into play in order for you to understand what is the total cost of that product, which then helps you to decide how much you're going to be selling that product for, because you need to be making your money back, but you also need to be making a profit on it because you have a business to run and you have overheads. And ultimately, you want to be able to have surplus. And I'll do a bit of a video on that separately another day. I'm not going to say I'm, a true expert on it, but hey, I've got, my viewpoint on it in terms of how I'm doing things now. And so I think sometimes that's what gets lost, because you might hear about a brand and how much something costs. They speak about that a lot on Dragon's Den. And it can be easy to assume or think, okay, well, if it's costing that, why am I being sold it for X? It's because that business has to make money at the end of the day. And, they have additional overheads, etc. But then also, there are different moving parts. So when I'm thinking about the products for Athletesia, there are certain features and benefits that come with the products. And that then means it costs extra to incorporate those things. And so sometimes there's things that I have that other brands don't have, and it's because of the extra cost. But at the end of the day, I look at things from a very logical perspective and the whole function side of things. I want to make sure that when someone buys something, the basic things that you would expect to do, such as putting something in your pocket and not having it drop out just with a zip, that is going to make a difference. And it's looking at those day-to-day experiences of what you can go through with a product and how can you make it better and how can you make it work best for your customer ultimately. And that comes from personal experience. So there's one video where I spoke about sleeves, and one of the things that I hate is when you have sleeves and they're not elasticated enough. So what happens is they constantly drop down. Now, if I want to go and do the dishes or if I want to wash up, I can't effectively do that because they're constantly dropping down. And if they're long, it means that they're getting wet, and that's super annoying. So when I'm speaking to my manufacturer, I'm like, look, this needs to be more elasticated. So someone rolls it up to their elbow, which tends to be the place where I'll always put stuff. But, it needs to be able to stay there. It's not something that is going to constantly drop down, because that just gets super, super annoying. And so it's looking at those little intricate details. And so when I think about my time at Topshop and Urban Outfitters and learning from the buying and merchandising and planning teams, these are the things that were cropping up in the conversation. And did we always get it right? I would say no. Sometimes it gets to a point where it's like, okay, let's do this as simple as we can to basically shift it, right? We can get it out there as quickly as possible and people are going to buy it. But my viewpoint is doing things super intentionally. It has to, align, and it has to feed through in the right way all the time. And what I mean by that is not just doing, if say, for example, when Athletesia launches and there's something that flies out the door and sells out, it's like, okay, right, yes, I need to get it back in, but I'm not going to rush that process to get it back in, because I need to make sure that from a quality and standards perspective, it does not drop. And nor does it mean that because it's flown out the door, I'm going to go and do like a crazy order on that front, because just because it done well the first time, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to do as well the second time. So it's constantly thinking about all of these different things and being smart with the choices and decisions that are being made. And I spoke about, making decisions in a separate video. And so that's what I wanted to touch on this one. But I have got a massive whiteboard on this side of the wall, and I'm really looking forward to doing some whiteboard videos with you. So I'm probably going to do that in the next video. And Ross from Cadence, I spoke about him previously. That's where I picked it up from. And I'm like, you know what, Ross, I like that flow, because there's sometimes things that I want to speak about, and having that whiteboard and just having that flow is going to make a massive difference, just to ensure that I incorporate all of the moving bits that I want to. So say, for example, there is a video that I want to do in terms of all the different people that I work with within my business, because yes, whilst I am, a solo founder, trust and believe there are people that I tap into all of the time and that I work with, to get their viewpoints, to get their feedback, to get their expertise, etc., to support what I'm doing, and also to get their, constructive feedback and criticism on things, because that helps me to grow. So I will definitely do a video on that and use the whiteboard. But if there is anything else that you would like to see and hear me speak about, then please drop it in the comments and let me know. There is one that I'm going to be doing on, product, and the fact that I like to break things. So these are all of the different Athletesia tote bags and stuff that I've had. Some of them are going into, well, one of them is going into production, and then the other ones will go into production at a later date. But I'm one of those people, and when I get examples, I'm like, okay, how can I kind of break this? Because I want to use it and make sure that it's going to, work for the customer and they're not going to experience issues. So I will do some breakdowns of some stuff that I have and what went wrong with it, what I went back and, asked to be improved, etc. And you will find those videos actually on the Athletesia channel, where I spoke about the examples and some of that stuff. But there is new things that have come into play as well since then. So I will definitely bring you that content. So yeah, we can just play around with some stuff during these videos. So I hope that you found this beneficial, and I appreciate you for watching. As always, feel free to, it'd be great if you could like and subscribe if you're not yet. And again, I will come back to you with any comments that you share. And yes, see you in the next video. Thank you so much.